Welcome to the podcast, Natasha Levinger.
Yay, thank you.
I've
Thanks for
been,
having me.
oh yeah, I've been wanting to have you on. I've been on yours twice now, and
Yes,
so it's
so
fun to
good.
now reciprocate, like
Yes,
you be in the other seat.
I love it.
Do you like being in the other seat?
Yeah, I do. I like talking about myself. I'm just
Ooh, I like it.
kidding. I really like talking about this work, though. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I think, I guess what I will ask first for my audience is just for you to introduce yourself from the place of the work you do. Like, what is it you do exactly? What do you specialize in? Tell us that first, then we'll go into you a bit.
Yeah, sure. So the work I do is I call it energy healing and energy reading, but energy healing has such a large umbrella. It's an umbrella term. It can mean so many things. But specifically, the work I do is to basically help people to release what isn't theirs, to be more in touch with who they really are, and also to integrate shadow stuff. So, a lot of people are carrying around just energy that doesn't feel good to them. So I look at chakras, at energy patterns, belief systems that people are holding in their chakras, just in the general energy field, and then help clear it out. And so what people are storing in their chakras is often old pattern, old trauma, basically, what they picked up from a long time ago that isn't serving them, belief systems and things like that. So we can, when we're in touch with that, with our energy, when we can feel that, then we can release it. Um, but also, most of the time, what I quickly realized when I started seeing people was that the inner child would come up basically every time, the wounded inner child. So, the wounded inner child is the part of us that's still living in the past, and it can be many different times. There can be many different versions of your wounded inner child, um, that is still believing the story or still stuck in the moment, um, of whatever happened. And so by embracing that part of ourselves and loving that part of ourselves and talking to it and understanding it, that's a way of integrating so that we can heal and really feel, um, whole and feel in touch with, like I said, with who we really are.
That's beautiful. The one piece you first said that I heard, letting go of things that aren't theirs. I've been talking about that a lot lately.
Oh.
With I often use the word attunement,
Mm.
and attunement is like a beautiful thing. um, I was recently using it in an example of when we're only attuning to others and not ourselves, that's when it gets off balance.
Oh, yeah.
But attuning to people is like how we have empathy and how we connect and how we notice something's off. But I love what you were saying about letting go of what isn't yours. Because when I think of a wounded inner child, I think of intergenerational trauma and things that get passed, like beliefs, patterns, physical stored energy, unconscious memory, right? Somatic memory.
Totally.
So when I hear you say that, I hear in my context, I'm helping people not attune to someone else's trauma anymore. Now,
Mm.
what's that show? How does that show up in your practice?
Yeah. Well, because so much of what we learn is, I mean, all of what we learn from when we're little is from other people's trauma a lot of times. I mean, and so then, yeah, so it's healing. I mean, it's healing the relationship. The thing is, what I've learned is that when you have to heal yourself and have compassion for yourself first before you really can, I don't know, heal that interrelational ancestral trauma. But it can be, I mean, there's so many ways to do that. I oftentimes work with the inner critic, um, in terms of, like, for instance, I'll just talk about myself. My own inner critic is essentially my mother, who I've basically internalized and it's that energy field. But what I've been doing is um, talking to that energy and asking, what does she need? What didn't she get? And handing over the trauma that I received from her to her. And then what I see on an energy level is she sometimes I'll have her hand it to then her mom and then her mom, and it's like, a whole line of healing. And then they give it to the light, they give it to source, they give it to their spirit guides or, whoever we're working with at the time. Um, but yeah, I mean, everything comes from the parent wound, and then the pictures. I look at it in terms of pictures, the pictures stored in the chakras. So the pictures that come up, we look at and heal, and yeah, they often come from what we learned or how we interpreted experiences from our parents a lot of times, and other places too. But what we learn mostly, I mean, like just on a brain level, from 0 to 7 is when we store all of the information in terms of how we relate to other people, how we feel about ourselves, how, just in general, we feel about ourselves in the world, because our brains are actually like in a hypnotic state at that time. So we're just like, we're sponges absorbing all of that. So then we can later grow our adult inner parents and learn how to release all of that.
So it's literally like a process of deprogramming and unlearning what you think
Yes.
is you, right? Like you're separating that from yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So I get curious about does because I find that with a lot of spiritual and energy work, it can bypass the physical body, like the soma.
Mhm.
What is your way? First of all, I'm curious what your experience is with that, and
Mhm.
what's your way to remedy that? Like, how do you feel the experience of giving that back through the ancestors?
Mhm. So you mean like how does that connect to the physical body? Yeah. So it's interesting because I've always been very attuned to just the energy body. It was very scary for me growing up too. It wasn't safe to be in my physical body, and I had very clear connections to source. Like I actually heard when I was 5 this what felt like a loving message from source or my guides or whoever, that said my mom had been yelling at me and she shut the door, and I heard, this is hard, but you're going to be stronger after you learn from this. And like I've always just been like, oh, I've had so much faith in that energy connection, and feel that's where I felt my safety. So I also, once I learned that, I'm going to get to this, so I really am, but but first I had to learn through the energy healing that I learned. That's how I learned how to feel grounded, actually, because through my energy grounding cord, through calling my energy back to me, through having a real much, because before I would spread it out, my energy was everywhere. I was very scattered. I would forget things all the time. I would lose things all the time. But just by actually owning my energy field, I became grounded. Now, to be honest, I didn't really feel super connected to my body. That's actually, I took your class because I was like, oh, what would that be like? And I actually do often in energy sessions with people, I can see like, oh, you do need to connect more to your body. Like, I get the information. It would help to move the body more or drink water. Or I like to tell people to do this technique of moving slowly, feeling their feet on the ground very slowly, like the heel, the ball, so I do get that information, but it's weird. I thought I would feel a huge difference when I was more connected to my body, which I do think I am now. after your course. I'm very much aware of it, but it hasn't been a major difference. And I think that might be, I mean, I did notice like I would cry more and I would, which that I hadn't been feeling. So that's like a physical thing. But the chakras really are connected to the actual spine. And I'm so in touch with them. Maybe that's why it's like I am more in touch with my body than I thought. But it's very, for me as an energy person, it's all, um, I experience it on, I don't know how else to say it. Just I've experienced it on an energy level. Like I feel the energy flowing or I don't feel it flowing. And again, like if somebody is really disconnected from their body, I actually think they can get away in there energetically speaking first, because that's how I did it. And yeah.
I'm glad you're saying that because I feel like when some people hear energy, there's the one thought of something that's like etheric and smoky and around you, like when we think of like the aura.
Yes. Yes.
When I hear you, the way you were just talking about the chakras and the spine and feeling energy, I mean, right there is the key terms, like feeling the energy.
Yes.
And
Yes.
right, like when I started training in somatic therapy, I remember realizing, oh, this is just energy. Like we're calling it trauma, and we have
Right.
all these words for like regulation and activation, but we're just talking about different levels of energy that's tolerable to feel, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we are what we are is beyond the mind. And sure, it's also behind the it's beyond the body. That's what we are, I believe anyway, is love and infinite spirit. And we do, I have to say, like, keep bringing up your class because it's the most somatic experience that I've had. But we do, by occupying our bodies more, it is a spiritual experience, which is something that I used to negate. I was like, why do I even need this body? Like, I'm just a spirit anyway. The body's going to be gone after I die. But it is like it's a spiritual experience to embody yourself, to feel like this is the only body you have for the time you're here. And yes, we're all gonna die, and who knows, maybe if you believe in what I believe, you'll maybe go in another body. But it's like this is a special thing to have it. And so to own it, owning the present in every way is a spiritual experience. And your body is part of it. So I have learned to stop negating my body. I mean, I'm lucky in that I didn't have a negative relationship with it. It was just kind of like this thing that I occupy while I'm here doing my energy, living my life.
I'm happy you said that because I'm thinking about my own development, and I remember everyone that listens, most people know my story. I completely dissociated from my body. It
Yeah.
was like intolerable to even look at my touch my body.
Yeah.
So from my neck down to like my waist, there was no body. There were just arms and legs and a head.
Yeah.
And I remember first getting into energy work. Like that was like my doorway into
Mm.
self healing was the chakra systems and Wicca and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of Reiki and just understanding like how to heal things on a really subtle level, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now looking back on that as it's transgressed into this or transpired into this somatic work, what you said just now is what I find to be true. What a spiritual experience it is to be in a body. It's like it's amazing because if we're this thing that we call spirit, which is consciousness, whatever it is that witnesses the body, because we know we're
Yeah.
not the body.
Yeah.
But if we're maybe not everyone believes that, but you and I believe that we're not our bodies.
Yeah.
So if the not our body's self, and we'll call it spirit for the sake of this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
is in the body, it's actually like a sacred relationship, isn't it?
Yes, it's a very sacred relationship. That's true. Yeah, I think people that you're an earth sign, right?
Virgo.
Yeah. So, um I feel like I just feel like there's all different ways to experience the body, and some people are more body centered and really experience that spirituality in their bodies in a stronger way than other people, you know? Like for me, it's very easy. Like, I mean, not to get too out there, but like I easily talk to people who aren't in bodies anymore. You know, I love doing that. I love to, like when I was 9, I had, I used to look at the obituaries and like write down new friends to talk to.
Oh, I
Like,
love that.
like I'm very much not an earth-based person necessarily, but but again, the more it's you wouldn't think it's maybe counterintuitive, but the more I got into my energy body in the present, the more I was able to really be like, oh yeah, I can see why I want to be on Earth. I can see what's special about Earth and what's special about my body. Yeah, anything again, anything when you're present, it can be a beautiful spiritual experience.
Well, even when you said I can see what's special about Earth, like when you said that, I just imagine being like a swirling spirit, in the ether,
Yeah.
and realizing how avant-garde it would be as a spirit to be in a body,
Yeah,
like how
it's
far out that
weird.
is. Like to drink water and like run into walls, to have like limitations. If you're really thinking about it in those terms, it's like such a ride, isn't it?
Yeah, I think about it in those terms all the time. I do, but again, like I think it's so important to be really present, like in your energy field too, because when I wasn't, I mean, that's when I think being an empath is hard, because you're just like you don't know what's yours. You're carrying stuff. You don't know what it is. It feels uncomfortable. That's when it's hard to be a swirling spirit in a body because you don't know really who you are.
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
being knowing who you are is like the key to all of it.
Well, I'm wondering when I hear that sentence, my mind goes to like knowing where I am. Kind of
Mm,
like when I heard you say being present with the energy body or of your energy body, I hear where is my energy body? Am I
mm,
feeling it in my body? Like, am I aware of it being right here? Or is it over there with that person who's angry and crying? Like where is
yes.
it going? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yes. I mean, that's what I talk about all the time. It's so simple. Like the things you can do to help yourself make that distinction, they're so simple and so small. Like you can literally just what I like to do, what I was taught is to say hello to myself from the center of my head. So like there's this point, the ball of light in the center of your head that you can it's neutral. So it's not attached to any chakra or any feeling or any emotion. And from that place you can call your energy back to you. You can do that all day long if you're somebody who feels that they stretch their energy everywhere. I tell people all the time, just like when you're in your car, just call your energy back to you. When you're sitting at the computer, call your energy back. Just check in, just say, oh, where is my energy right now? I like to do the same thing for the inner child too, because I like to have people just like check in, like, how are you? How's my heart? How's my inner child? How's it? Those kind of check ins help you know when you're with the crying person, and not with yourself.
Yeah.
And the
I
more you do that, then you will know right away, oh, crap, I just went over there, and bring yourself back.
I mean, it's interesting because first of all, I love that practice of saying hello from the center of your head. Like I just did it and I felt this like
Isn't it good?
yeah, everything
It's
came
so
right back.
good.
Like I felt very solid.
I
Everyone
love
listening, it
that.
has to try that right now. It's so cool. Uh, and then as I'm doing that and I'm hearing you speak, I'm just thinking, wow, the work we do is really similar. It's being taught with different language and mythologies, but it's really about how do I relate to myself, right? Like where am I? How do I relate to myself? And how do I relate to myself is how do I speak to my inner child? How do I speak to my
Yep.
pain? How do I
Yes.
feel the sensations of I'm in the past? Or how do I feel the sensations of I started leaving myself, right? It's all these like
Yes.
check-ins, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so similar. I know that again because I took your class. I was like, this is so similar. It's the same thing in a lot of ways, just from either the energy healing perspective or the body perspective. But yeah, it is the same thing. And it's funny that when you said hello to yourself, you went like you got that feeling. Because when I say hello to myself, it's like, oh, there she is. Like
Yeah, yeah,
it's like a lighty
yeah.
feeling. Um, but the other thing that's similar is giving meaning to things, or like what I wasn't used to is saying hello to like body parts, like, oh, where is this in my body? Hi, what are you feeling? For me, it's more like what's in my energy field or my inner child, which does live in my body. But also that we attach meaning. It's the meaning that we attach to things that creates tension or contraction or makes us want to jump into the someone else's experience. So that's the same thing in terms of like when I see pictures in people's space, it's like, oh, I can see what meaning they're attaching to things and also um, when it started. But
Meaning is everything. I mean, I'm glad you're saying that because meaning is literally like if you have the ability to shift a meaning, you've literally shifted an entire reality in
oh,
seconds,
yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes. That's what the beauty is of talking to our inner child and our inner critic, because a lot of times these voices, they're just like this mishmash in our heads, but when we bring them kind of out of the body, metaphorically, but really when we give them a voice and we speak as them, then we can see more clearly and I should say feel more clearly, oh, I've been giving like this haircut so much meaning. If
Yeah.
your inner critic is like, you look terrible, that's stupid, why do you look like that? In your head it's kind of a low, like, oh god, I don't like my hair. But when you hear that voice, it's like, oh my god, why am I talking to myself like that? And you can hear them. That I used a very tiny, obviously superficial example, but you can hear the meaning that you've been really absorbing in your energy field and in your body.
And I just want to say it's kind of like for my own sake, I like to destigmatize energy healing
Oh, thank
as
you.
because I've seen the difference between speaking with clients and to groups as a somatic therapist versus as an energy healer. I've seen the
Mm,
difference in reception where,
totally.
like
I'm
people who
sure.
people who are like naturally otherworldly and witches or drawn to the occult, like energy healing is normal. But for a big chunk of the world, you hear energy healing and people think, oh, that's made up. Like that's not real. And I think again, just from the somatic work I've been entrenched in for 5 years now,
Mm.
it's like I see the somatic experiencing and the somatic techniques a way to explain how to be in touch with the energy. So
Mm.
energy, which is so expansive, like when you say my energy field versus like your right arm, right? The right arm is so contained. You can just be with your
Yes.
shoulder. How does that
Yes.
feel? But
Yes.
the energy field is quite, I think people get overwhelmed by the vastness of it. Can you speak
Yeah,
to that at all?
well, yeah, definitely. That's interesting. Well, first, I just want to say, we're human beings and we like to, we believe what we see,
Yeah.
So it's like if we see it, then it's real. But one example that I just came to me the other day was, sometimes people will be lying to your face and they'll be saying it and you're hearing it and those are real things, but in your body you're like, ooh, or your energy, how I would feel is like, that doesn't feel right. And that's real, And if somebody comes up behind you, and you can feel them behind you, that's real. But people, I understand it, that we really want to see to believe. That's something um that we want in order to feel safe. I think it feels safer. It's like, oh, I can point to that, so therefore it's happening.
That's right. That's right.
Um
I have to pause you
right.
there. 'Cause I think it's a really
Yeah,
important thing. I just want to sit with for a moment. That's okay.
that's good because I forgot the other part of the
Okay,
question.
good. No, I think that part about seeing is so important because it's becoming more and more, I think maybe it's just I'm in like a little circle and I think it's becoming bigger in the world, but
I
I you know
I
like
wonder that all the time. It feels like everything's just normalized now.
and then you
Like,
go to like a shopping plaza and you're like, oh nope, nope.
yeah,
I'm,
exactly.
I'm wrong. I'm delusional. Yeah, this little bubble I live in,
Mhm.
um, and this online bubble I live in, or I
Yeah.
look at, it is so much in tune with what we're talking about. And the parts that I'm seeing, and I'm referring to that. I don't know if you saw the documentary that came out with Gabor Mate recently. It's called The Wisdom of Trauma.
No, I wanna watch that. I keep meaning to.
Well, I'm so glad it was made because the first one I've seen besides the documentary Heal, I think it was called Heal,
Mhm.
um, that really explains the medicalization of trauma, like how we
Mm.
become, we actually, we don't, but our bodies create medical issues, illnesses, symptoms, congestive heart failure, all these things from
Mhm.
trauma. But then you
Mhm.
say, well, what's trauma? Trauma is energy. Trauma is
Mm.
energy that's stored versus energy that flows. That's the
Yeah.
only thing different about a trauma or a threat or a stress is that the energy
Mm.
doesn't flow. So I'm saying
Mm.
that because I have this, desire or this dream that the world starts to notice, oh, energy becomes physical because you're saying like you can't see it. And so you look at someone that has, let's say, like chronic asthma, and everything
Mhm.
in their life has changed. They're eating really well, they're taking care, but it just stays. And then we
Mm.
ask them to check in with their lungs, like, how does it feel? Oh, it's always tight, right? There's all this
Mm.
energy bound up there. So I'm
Yes.
just kind of speaking to that because I think it's an important piece just to feel about how energy
Yes.
like the body is here to physically show us where energy is.
Yeah. Yeah, I get so conflicted about that because I totally believe that and I see that, but then also there's this thing about blaming the victim, that I hate to do
What do you
that
mean?
too. Well, I mean, like, oh, if you have cancer, it's your fault, because you're
Totally.
holding trauma there. So therefore, that's your fault. So it's kind of, I think about that a lot because I don't ever want to blame the victim and I don't believe that. But I do also believe and know from my work and myself that we do those things. We hold on to the trauma. We resist of our feelings a lot. And when we experience something, we hold on to it as a means to understand it or we're afraid to feel it. And when we can just allow it to exist, sometimes just allowing it, it can move. It does move.
See, what you're saying is important because that distinction between, because I agree, I do not subscribe to the notion of like, what did I do to get cancer?
Yes,
I think it's
exactly.
really harmful.
Yeah.
But I do believe that just like sneezing, I often use sneezing as the example because it's
Mm.
so impersonal. It's like, you know, like it's not my fault I sneeze. So it's not my fault I have trauma in my lungs. My
Right.
body's doing that.
Oh, yeah, I
So there's
like
this
that.
innocent, does that make, there's like an innocence
Yes.
there.
Yes, yes, I really love that because also, like, when you're a kid or you can't help, you're actually trying to protect yourself. That also, your inner critic is trying to protect you, even though mine is my mother kind of internalized that energy. That part is trying to protect me from experiencing those things again. So it's not something that you could help or is your fault. I agree. But then, yeah, by examining it and seeing the source and feeling into that and just allowing it. I mean, self-compassion it's like a superpower and it's another one of those things we can't see, but you can like you can't this is going to sound so cheesy, but you can't see love, but it exists, you
You can
know?
feel it.
Yeah, yeah, you can feel it. You can feel it, but you can't see it. But that self-compassion moves energy so much. I mean, when I see people after they've like if I'll see them before, when they're being hard on themselves, and then after another session when they're implementing self-compassion, they move energy. It moves. And it's really because, or at least partly because, in my opinion, that's who we really are. We really are this endless being of love, and that's getting you more in touch with that. So that's why it's flowing. That other stuff doesn't flow because it doesn't belong there.
That's such a
And
good way
it's
to
not.
put it. And it's like as you're saying it, I'm just thinking the desire to remove the conditional aspect of healing, like if my energy flows, I'll never get sick. It's like we don't know that because it's a mystery. It's a beautiful mystery,
Yes.
right? But this practice, and I actually, before your episode airs, one already came out about by the time this airs, one already came out with my friend Lenita, who had a near-death experience recently.
Oh, wow.
And she has this like 40-50-year-old practice of what we're talking about, like really being in relationship with her energy and where it is and calling it in and
Oh,
like transmuting the energy around her.
yeah.
And 10 days in the hospital dying, she said the entire thing was bliss. And
Oh, yeah. I feel like so. I feel like I got too eager about her almost dying. I'm like, oh yes, she's almost died. I'm so excited to listen to that. I love hearing about
but
that.
it's
Yeah.
like it's important based on what you're saying about like not to victim blame, because
Yes.
she's pretty impeccable with her energy, and she still had this like strange multiple organ failure that came out of nowhere.
Wow.
But because of her work with her energy, she was able to relate to the being of death in
Oh,
her. There was no resistance. And so she said there was no
yes.
pain. It was like lovely. She was all over the place and then in her body at the same time. And then she like
Wow.
suddenly they're like, wait, you're not dying anymore. And
Whoa. I
she
wonder why
just
she came back. Was she like in a coma? Was she in a coma?
no, she was like that in and out, but it wasn't like full
Okay.
on coma, but she was like
Okay.
conscious while her body was shutting down.
Whoa.
And they were
That's
like
so
preparing her
cool.
family. Everyone was coming in, like she only had a couple days, and then just came
Wow.
through. But
Yeah.
it's a great example of I don't do this work so I don't get cancer. That's too
Right.
conditional. I
Oh,
do this work
yeah.
to relate to
Yeah.
whatever comes in, be it cancer or joy.
Yes. Yes,
So
exactly.
that's how you see
Yeah.
it too.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and also that idea of like, oh, what did I do? I mean, that's just more contraction. That's self-hate, really.
Yes.
That's self-abuse. It's just like, yeah, that's the opposite of why we're here. Also, we're here temporarily. I mean, we're none of us are not ever going to get sick. It's like this is part of the experience. And not to
Yes.
say like you have to enjoy every single second of it. That's spiritual bypassing, but you can but being the more you open to it, the more it's going to be easier for you, and you can allow it to flow, and it won't be as hard. When you're grieving, like for instance, my cat, I am I'm a cat person. My cats were like the only I always say they taught me how to love, because those were the beings in my house. That's how I learned how to love. I really believe that. But so when one of my cats died recently, I really opened to the experience of grief, and it was very painful, but it was also kind of beautiful. It was like I felt the whole thing. Like I really went into it, and any time that I started to contract around it, it felt so much worse. Contracting and restricting feelings is more painful than the actual just experience of the feelings.
Mhm. I'm so glad you said that because that contraction, like if we imagine it, it's like the pressure that comes from the energy when it's contracted, like that's the pain in my experience.
Yes,
And I
yes,
have the same experience with grief. It's like it like rocks you because there's so much love coming through that it can hurt sometimes. And
yes.
you're in this dance of, am I
Mm,
constricting against the grief or am I opening to the grief? And
mm.
it's a dance. It's like you're pendulating in between those places.
Yeah, it's so funny. I like to because we're so different in some ways, and so similar with the in the work and stuff. Just because you moved your body when you said dancing, and like for me, again, it's just all like, like it feels like just this energetic experience of my heart. Like I really feel it. I'm sure you feel it in your heart too, but you were like moving your body, and for me, I feel it so much in the energy field. And you know, yeah, I was just going to say one more thing about not seeing, but they are even though we can't, our imagination, we can't see it. And when I'm talking about the energy, like I feel it in the energy, we can't see it, but it does exist. It's just in a plane that we can't see. For lack of sounding like a real cuckoo. I'm sure
No,
I
that
already do. So.
oh no, never. No, I mean to me that maybe to some people, not to me. Uh no, that's so right on. Because again, and it's so funny how you're seeing that difference between us, like I'm like in my body about it, and you're kind of just in the field, like dropping in.
Yes,
I, I
yes.
I think it's proper because not proper, but it's a proper assessment of me
Yeah.
because because when you said we're in a plane where we can't see it, it's like yes, and to me the body is how you dust for those fingerprints. You know, the
Mm.
body lets you feel what you can't see.
Oh,
So
that's interesting.
so I see the
Yeah.
body as like this barometer that helps you sense the energy that you might not believe in or know what to do with.
Oh,
Now, some
yeah.
of us like you, you're like,
Yeah, I don't do that.
yeah, you're like, you're like,
That's
forget
not
that
how I'm
body,
dusting.
which I love, but that's how I do it.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. I mean, earth-based, I used to be intimidated by earth-based people because I was like, oh, I'm so not them. And that's when I cared more about what people thought of me. Because I'd be like, they're not gonna like me because I'm scattered and now I'm like, oh no, that's interesting. We're just different.
Yeah,
And
like we get to the same place in a different way.
yeah, exactly.
Well, what is your sign?
I'm Aquarius
Oh,
and
cool.
yeah, and Libra moon and Pisces rising. So it's all very like,
Wow. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I
Aquarius
do
makes
have
sense.
a what are you?
Aquarius makes a lot of sense for you.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
weird.
No, I love Aquarians. My daughter's
Oh,
Aquarius rising.
oh
So it's
yeah.
like she's like
Oh,
straight up weird right away. There's
yeah.
no there's no tucking it away.
That's funny. I do have I used to think, oh, I'm so airy, but I actually have all the earth signs in my chart somewhere. And
That's
I don't,
cool.
and it does like, again, I just want to say you can be grounded, even relating to the world in an energetic way. And to mention your class for the last time, um, I think it helped me. It was just like another level to be like, oh, and I can also like say hi to my legs and see what's going on there and like deal with it on a physical level, not just yeah, not just like where is it in my energy field?
Yeah, I
Like
love
my
that.
leg, my because there are leg channels. So usually I'm like, hello, leg channels, or like checking in with them. Where are they blocked? Like, oh, I'm gonna clear it out with light. But now it's like, oh, the legs too. I can pay attention to them.
I love that. You're marrying both philosophies there.
Yeah, and I feel like you are too, because you even that maybe not consciously like dealing with your chakras, but because you're dealing with the energy, you are.
I completely agree. Well, when I was really into chakra work and I was training and
Oh,
studying it and practicing it with my friends and myself,
oh,
I remember the big correlation was the certain foods that related to the chakras. And that was like my little
oh,
foray into, oh, the physical earth realm has so much to do with the energy field. Like they are
oh,
relatives. And so it for me,
interesting.
it's really about the body as a relative more than anything else.
Mm.
It's literally a being we're inside of.
Yes, that is true. I have to remember that more because I do feel like if my eating was different, I it may help me connect even more to the other side. That's all. That's always my motivation. Am I hearing my guides enough?
What can
Maybe
I
I'll hear it.
use on this earthly plane to get off the earthly plane for?
Exactly.
That is so funny.
I know.
Well, I'm realizing I we don't have enough time. I haven't asked you anything about your life growing up,
Oh.
because because I was so interested in our conversation. So I want to have you back if
Oh,
that's
great.
to
I'd
talk
love
about your
that.
life. Yeah, I want to hear
Yeah,
more
that'd be great.
because you don't get as good as at healing or being empathic or holding space unless you've been through some shit.
Yes, and I
So,
have.
okay. So, so, I'd love to just have you on to talk more about that.
Oh,
Um,
thanks. I'd love that.
but how can people find you? What do you offer? Like, how do you, what's the way you work now with people? And maybe talk about your podcast as well.
Oh yeah. So I you can excuse me, you can find me at highestlighthealing.com and on Instagram at highestlighthealing. And I do sessions with people where I look at their energy field, look at the sources of whatever they're feeling and help clear it out. And I always, it's like clearing out whatever is ready to come up in the moment. It's not like, okay, and now you're done for life. It's just like, I'm able to see in and clear out. But the thing that I'm really focusing on is my inner child healing class, which I'm probably going to be doing in August, or my inner child healing work. I'm also working on a book about that too. And so you can find all that on my website. And yeah, my podcast, Magic Monday, which I co host with Tess Whitehurst, who's a spiritual author and a witch and a great person. And we have a lot of fun on there. You can listen to Luisa's episodes. We talk about like all things witchy, energy healing. Yeah, just like exploring a lot of what we talked about here, but more like the day to day of it, and we interview people. So I think that's it.
I love it. I love listening to you too. I love being on with
Oh,
you too. I love hearing what you have to
so
say.
fun.
You're
Yay.
so like you're very grounded
Oh,
in
thank
your
you.
approach.
Appreciate that compliment.
Believe it or not, but it's very lovely because you're a real person. Like it's very easy to
Mm.
connect to you. You attune so beautifully. It's like
Oh.
this isn't someone who's so bypassed with by using energy or talking about it. It's someone that's
Mm.
really like feeling the energy and
Mm.
embodying it.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, I love being around you and learning with you and from
Oh,
you.
thank you. Me too. Same, same, same.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was really
Yes,
great.
thank you, Luis. Loved it.